Welcome to the Chaos Sector. We return to the Matrix. We apologize for the delay. Just took some time off. Sometimes you need a break from the madness. But before we go any further, let's revisit the Idaho 4 case for a moment. Yeah, I know we said it's over, but there is one person in particular that has caught our attention. Again, the clown, that's right, or you guys know him as Crime Circus or Drip Drop or whatever silly name he goes by. Although we've stopped investigating, we do often glance over to see what's being discussed, such as updates on the trial or any new information in the case. We decided to see what the clown was going to be blabbering about in one of his recent videos, and he showed why he needed to be exposed by the chaos prior. Simply put, he basically was dumping out soft pornography in the video at the expense of a massacre. Yep, that's apparently something he, wanted to display to prove a point, I guess. Before we listen to the audio excerpt from that video, we posted a comment on it to show how mentally disturbed this person actually is. Quote, "So this clown is priceless, the same problem over and over. To create this content, the clown decided to include a simulated sex scene with Dylan, with moaning, and he calls himself serious? He is sick, and this is why the chaos needed to expose such a sicko. Yet he cast stones everywhere upon others. You don't let these type of people run around, especially posing as true crime investigators or any other source of truth. 8-hour lovemaking sessions with simulated sex activity involving 4 college students who were massacred? One would say he's joking, but those murders have nothing to joke about, especially anything sexual. Not a true crime investigator, but clearly a sex deviant." Unquote. The problem here is he gets away with it due to his so-called eccentric personality, and it's seen as silly rhetoric involving the murder investigation. But how can you genuinely investigate those murders or any other murder case while clowning around within your investigation? Think about it. For the clown to make a so-called joke about Dylan, he first had to imagine a scenario in his brain first, then produce the joke. And that so-called joke was about Dylan having sex with her boyfriend during the time frame her housemates were deceased. But dig deeper into his twisted mind. He would also have to imagine Dylan and her boyfriend having sex, and then went on to literally simulate that sexual activity in his video. There's no need to actually simulate this scenario, even if you assume that's what was. Wait, let's take a step back. So the clown is claiming that Dylan was so cruel to her housemates that instead of panicking and trying to figure out how to cover it up, she decided to just have sex with her boyfriend while her housemates lay deceased in their bedrooms? We've always believed Dylan was involved, but she wasn't that ruthless. She was basically driven by jealousy, perhaps used as an insider to plot against those housemates, but she is not that twisted to mock their deaths in having sex in the house after they were murdered. She would be in a state of panic, as the horror of what she experienced and was involved in would cause her to lose control. Many assume Dylan left the home after the murders and then returned in the morning. But the point, the clown's sexually twisted imagination compelled him to push that narrative. Now, this is clearly a mentally disturbed individual, and perhaps a sexual deviant. We may have this episode flagged by his supporters, but let's listen to that excerpt. Warning, sexually graphic material will be heard.
I'm in her window and we saw her pink boots. Yeah, we did. We did. And right along here, which I did not animate, was the road. This is where some creepy YouTubers pulled up, and they decided to film the house and they tried to film inside of Maddie Mogan's bedroom window. That was sus. I don't like when YouTubers drive to crime scenes for content. That's where Maddie Mogan and Kaylee G lost their lives. And people want to live stream some sort of sick spectacle. They really like to turn this into a circus, don't they?
Oh, okay. So YouTubers who drove to the crime scene are human filth, but you're the real deal, right? You're the genuine investigator? Perhaps some of them were in fact using that for clickbait, but then again, there may be true crime investigators who, guess what, actually concern themselves with that hobby, or even we can consider it a form of an occupation. Yes, some true crime investigators take their investigations that serious that it becomes a profession. In fact, some of them have a background in law enforcement, forensics, and other crime-related professions. But for the clown, who has shown he actually doesn't do his own researching, rather is spoon-fed theories and information by his cult followers, he's the last to throw stones. Also, if you look at his header on this specific channel, it says True Crime Interrogations. It doesn't say true crime investigations. So he's not a true crime investigator by his own words. Anywho, let's continue.
Now, back to this animation. This is important. You can see the attention to detail. Nothing was spared. This is a nearly exact replica. So now that we have this animation up and we're taking a good look, we're looking for clues, let's zoom in closer to Xana's bedroom window. This is where Xana and Ethan apparently were taken from us.
Oh my god.
And that's a boom! You know it is.
Okay, this is clearly a mockery of Ethan and Xana. Why, you ask? Because he plays such sorrowful music, and then some audio clip of a female saying, OMG comes in. Now it's the way she says OMG, which is more of how Kim Kardashian says OMG.
Oh my god.
Not like, oh, let me guess, the OMG the female from Linda Lane's audio screamed out. That female screamed out OMG because she was witnessing something horrifying. Not like she witnessed someone wearing the wrong high heels with their outfit.
Oh my god.
You understand? Understand the psychological games the clown is playing. And unfortunately for him, we study psychological warfare. In fact, we're fighting that war at this very moment. So it's quite easy to decipher all of these little tactics.
A lot of you watching this have seen the drone footage that I released previously. It's been speculated that there was human blood outside of Xana's bedroom window.
Negative, don't try to pass that off onto others. It was the clown who pushed that theory that there was blood outside Xana's window. And of course, we exposed that it was nothing more than cedar dust from the trees. And we know the clown carefully examined that photo and noticed that same so-called blood on the other side where there wasn't a window, which obviously meant it was more than likely cedar dust. But instead, he pushed the narrative that it was blood outside of the window to stir up theories that are obviously not grounded in physical, or better yet, visual evidence within the photo he's pushing that theory from. Insanity. Let's continue.
Did the perpetrator enter the house through Xana's bedroom window and leave a mass outside of her window? Or was that the escape route? Did Dylan scare off the perpetrator? Seriously, we need to know. Did Dylan Mortensen scare off the perpetrator when he saw her peeking out the second floor bedroom? Did she?
This is unbelievable, right? Why is the clown asking this question when he obviously knows Dylan was involved? I mean, come on, it's been a full 2 years since that night, and everyone can come to the consensus that Dylan was involved in those murders. It was the core of everyone's investigation, the suspicious activity, and the lack of logic in her affidavit. Maybe not an actually attacker or killer, but her whereabouts were not disclosed in the police report. Off that alone, she's involved. Every other housemate was accounted for, including the other survivor, Bethany. So if Dylan's whereabouts were not disclosed, then those whereabouts are a secret. And as you know our saying, if there's secrecy, there's a conspiracy. You see? Now, all of those who scrutinized the chaos for addressing these individuals, do you see why? These individuals are damage control agents. Let me elaborate here. The clown asking this question paints a scenario in the home where there is a lone killer and Dylan potentially scared him off. He knows this is not the truth, but he's presenting it to stay off the path of truth, then hops back onto that path in another video. In other words, just playing the seesaw game with your brain, and has monetized his multiple channels in the process.
Or was she too busy getting it on with her boyfriend, Quinn? Did the perpetrator hear the squeaks of the mattress springs as this college student was getting it on?
Now, this is clearly not true. It's not even possible during that time frame. But more importantly, why is the clown simulating this sexual activity with Dylan and her boyfriend? You see, sick minds will display it at some point. And such a sick mind may not even realize that what they're displaying is sick. That's how sick they are. You understand? The clown has no filter of integrity for this murder case, the investigation, and those housemates. He will just present whatever comes to his sick mind, and his cult will gobble it all up. The chaos is not a true crime channel. We expose truth and deception. We expose everything and anyone. So we definitely aren't the perfect example of how to go about a true crime investigation. The clown, on the other hand, covers this type of content and is simulating a sex scene in the home where a massacre took place. You have to really think about this because, as mentioned, he felt that it was quite fine in placing that simulation into that video. No conscious morale to say, nah, that's a bit too sexual. In fact, a person who doesn't suffer from a mental illness such as the clown wouldn't even have that thought to begin with. You see, he represents everything that's wrong with the true crime community, ego-driven scam artist who feed off the public's intrigue regarding high-profile murder cases. We expose everything and everyone, so if you're deceptive and in the same vicinity, might as well prepare to be exposed.
Is it possible that that's why it took 8 hours to call 911? Because it was an 8-hour lovemaking session all night long. Multiple times.
You see, those little squeaking noises are to send sexual frequencies to his audience while discussing a murder case. Why are you sending sexual frequencies to your audience when they look to you for discoveries in that murder case? Because he doesn't care about his audience. He uses them for his own personal gain. And of course, if anyone in the cult questions him, they get banned and gangs talked by the other cult members. A complete psychopath.
This is our investigation, and we just took it up a notch. Yeah, we did.
I guess this is poetic justice because the trial is going to reveal that Koberger is innocent. It will also reveal that he was framed, and you have individuals in the true crime community who were clearly a part of the frame job as well, just like the mainstream media. So, as a result of the truth being exposed, individuals such as the clown are starting to unravel. Again, referring back to the previous exposure of the clown we had. We mentioned how the clown avoided placing blame on the housemates, specifically Dylan, and dumped out wacky theories about Bitcoin and the cult of Odin, going back to that ledge near Xana's bedroom. As you see, this is the drone capture that he is referring to, alluding to there being blood on that ledge. Now we have it edited, but let's look at the original photo and zoom in. Okay. Examining that ledge, that is not blood because it's spread along the entire ledge on the other side, where the other window is not aligned with the ledge. So it's just cedar dust from those trees and other dirt that has accumulated on that ledge for quite some time, more than likely. Now, this is clear to see, right? So you see this clear as day. And guess who else saw this clear as day? That's right, the clown. Think about the deceptive nature of the clown. To present a theory that he knows is obviously not possible based on the visual evidence presented before him, and still has the arrogance and disregard for the investigation to intentionally present this photo as possible evidence that blood was stained outside of Xana's window. And then what would happen as a result? Others would run with that theory. And before you know it, it spreads like wildfire. As many claim, there was blood outside of Xana's window, despite the visual proof that debunks it. Our theories have always been logical, despite mistakes we've made, which we correct. But these individuals like to misdirect their audience, trying to drive them insane. Misery loves company, I guess. Going so far away from the core, which is where every genuine true crime investigator, commentator, or interested group started from. And that's inside the home. But throughout his so-called investigative work, he never presented a theory or possibility that Dylan and even Bethany were involved in those murders. He initially claimed Koberger was the killer. Then he still had that theory, but started introducing other possible suspects, such as a cult, and even the murders may have been linked to Bitcoin investments. Not once did he dig into why Dylan's whereabouts were kept secret in the police report. But he has no problem plastering her photos in his thumbnails. And as displayed here, depicting her in a sexual manner, that sounds like, well, for one, a pervert, but also someone who is executing damage control for Dylan and the other conspirators. I'm done. Don't want to get agitated.
Don't want to get agitated. Let's finish strong. The clown is clearly executing damage control, and I have this inkling that he may be involved somehow. I know it may seem like slander, but we go based on behavior, and his behavior is one that indicates silent anger issues. We have to also keep in mind the possible reason these individuals are so confident in doing what they do is because, well, many may not like this, but it was a hoax. I know that enters very deep waters, but it's not irrational. I would break down why it could be a hoax. It's quite simple, actually. But we'll leave that for you to keep in mind. Now, there is a sexual element to this case that does deserve a bit of attention, though. We obviously won't be simulating sexual activity at a freaking murder scene, but there were rumors that those girls had OnlyFans accounts. If this were true, then we have to also introduce sex trafficking into the equation, along with drug trafficking. There's a reason why the families have been very quiet. The only family speaking really is Kaylee's family, and they're not doing a good job at it neither. The mainstream media would never present information where those housemates were, on social media fooling around on such a sexually driven website. It would lead to the theory that they were flirting with dangers. The same with the theory of drug trafficking, flirting with dangers. And when this would be the case, it's hard to depict them as innocent angels. It doesn't mean they deserve to die, of course not, and hopefully no one perceives this analysis in such a way. But it does dim their light just a bit, Because like it or not, this activity and lifestyles are literally examples of playing with fire. And good people get burned playing with fire. It's just the truth. There was a theory that Koberger was simply some horny college student looking for some action and had hooked up with one of those housemates. Or he was in communication with them in potentially hooking up. Now don't get too squirmish, but this happens all the time. Younger college girls dating older men, and since we're in the digital age, a lot of these hookups are carried out on social media, such as OnlyFans. Now in this theory, it's still possible that Koberger was framed. It's just he was trying to mess around with younger college women. Although he was approximately 7 to 8 years older than those girls, the age of 28 to about 21 makes him appear to be a creep. Maybe this is his secret that he is afraid to share, because it aligns with the motive. Mind you, the mainstream media claimed that Kaylee had a stalker, but didn't identify anyone in particular. But if there is a claim she had a stalker, then obviously Kaylee was aware of this individual, and her peers also knew who this person was. And surely her family was informed about it, especially the males being her father and brother, right? Let me break it down further. A young woman is being stalked by some guy, right? She becomes aware of this and notifies her friends, notifies her family, and we have to assume that the authorities are also notified about this stalker. They may not be able to charge him with anything based on the law, but the point here is that someone would be identified as the stalker. Yet nobody was identified. A stalker is usually someone the victim knows or is familiar with, and also the stalker can't help themselves in getting too close to their targets. And this is how the target becomes aware that they are being stalked by that individual. You understand, if Koberger was the stalker, then why is Dylan not willing to testify against Koberger? You understand. Later on, there were claims that Koberger followed Kaylee and Maddie on social media, yet we examined it, and it was doctored screenshots. So there hasn't been any proof that Koberger stalked those girls, and without this evidence, it's hard to tie a motive for him to murder those housemates, which would be associated with stalking. So through the process of elimination, we can say that Koberger was a 28-year-old college student, perhaps hadn't had luck with women his age, maybe glanced over at fellow college students a bit younger than him, and was deemed a creep by the younger peers in college. It's common, college students go based on the cool factor, and Koberger wasn't the cool guy. If he were the cool guy, the same guy being 28 years old, those college girls would embrace him. But he wasn't, so he's a creep. That's how society categorizes themselves. And also, as mentioned in our series, perhaps Koberger was seen as a snitch because he was aware of the drug trafficking. He was aware of the sex trafficking also, and the college students didn't like those prying eyes. I mean, his career path indicated that he may have very well been prying eyes on campus. The criminals definitely didn't like this. When I say prying eyes, I'm referring to someone who is highly observant, who observes things that perhaps others may overlook. It's not that they do it intentionally, more so they're just meant to see it. We've broken this down before, but again, if college students are involved with drug trafficking, then the photos and TikTok videos of them having fun, enjoying life, seeming so positive, well, that's not really what's going on away from social media. And that does change a lot in this case, because their deaths obviously weren't random. So if the deaths weren't random, then there is a motive. And this is what the chaos constantly tried to reach, the motive behind the murders. Speculation came about that they were involved in drug trafficking It started to add up, especially factoring Bonnie and Clyde into the equation. For those who don't know, Bonnie and Clyde are our nicknames for Emma Bailey and Demetrius Robinson. They're mentioned and being known in town as drug pushers, and also were familiar with some of those housemates, basically confirmed that this was drug-related. Of course, Dot, who had been exposed for pretending to be at the neighbor's home the night of the murders, did mention Bonnie, who was hanging outside the home with Dylan the following morning, and a black guy who would obviously be her partner in crime. Now, although Dot was exposed for pretending to be at the neighbor's home that night, we came to the conclusion the accounts were still factual. Meaning, the individual who stayed next door allowed Dot to provide these details for her in fear of her safety. Coincidentally, the closer next door neighbors, some of them moved out the following morning. So the point to all of this is there is a lot beneath the surface than just TikTok videos and a lone killer. What are the three main influences from criminal organizations, you ask? Sex, drugs, and violence, the dreaded trifecta of criminal activity. In fact, we can confirm that sex was also involved, because none of these will exist without the others. Meaning, if there is drug trafficking, there has to be sex trafficking also, due to the money generated from sex trafficking, which can be used to support drug trafficking, or vice versa. And of course, violence is involved because, well, these are human beings after all, right? There is no such thing as non-violent drug trafficking, nor non-violent sex trafficking. All three elements were at the center of those murders, in our opinion, and all of them have been covered up. We did our job in exposing it, though, and didn't have to use Dylan for sexual exploitation, such as the creepy clown did. But it shows what he truly thinks about the tragedy. He thinks it deserves his sexual deviant humor. And digging deeper, this display of disregard is also in association to the victims as well, you see? And has the nerve to claim others are making a circus out of the case?
This is where some creepy YouTubers pulled up, and they decided to film the house and they tried to film inside of Maddie Mogan's bedroom window. That was sus! Or was she too busy getting it on with her boyfriend, Quinn? Did the perpetrator hear the squeaks of the mattress springs as this college student was getting it on? I don't like when YouTubers drive to crime scenes for content. That's where Maddie Mogan and Kaylee G lost their lives. And people want to live stream some sort of sex spectacle. They really like to turn this into a circus, don't they?
This is the chaos sector,